The man who created September died with a secret that changed everything we thought we knew about Earth, Wind, and Fire. Picture this, it's 1978, and millions of people around the world are dancing to September, completely unaware that the genius behind this magical sound is already fighting a battle nobody knows about. Maurice White, the mastermind of Earth, Wind, and Fire, was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in the 1990s, but his vision had been shaping music history for decades before anyone realized his body was betraying him. Today, we're going to take you on an incredible journey through the lives of the original Earth, Wind, and Fire members, from their golden days of cosmic funk to where they are right now. And some stories will inspire you, others will break your heart, but all of them reveal the untold truth behind one of music's greatest bands. Earth, Wind, and Fire wasn't just a group that made catchy songs. They created a movement that combined jazz, funk, gospel, and African rhythms into something the world had never heard before. But behind those glittering costumes and mind-blowing stage shows were real people with real struggles, real dreams, and real losses. By the end of this video, you'll understand why some of these legends are still performing today while others quietly faded away, and why their story is more dramatic than any movie Hollywood could create. Let's start with the man who started it all. Maurice White was born on December 19, 1941, in Memphis, Tennessee, a city where music flows through the streets like water. Growing up in a neighborhood filled with gospel and blues, Maurice absorbed every sound around him. His family later moved to Chicago, where he studied at the Chicago Conservatory of Music and became a session drummer at the legendary Chess Records. This is where he worked with icons like Etta James and Muddy Waters, learning from the best and developing his unique musical vision. But Maurice wasn't content just being a session musician. He had bigger dreams, and he wasn't just creating music, he was creating an experience that would touch people's souls. He brought together incredible talents like Philip Bailey, whose voice could reach the heavens, and introduced instruments like the kalimba, an African thumb piano, into popular music. The band's success was astronomical. Albums like That's the Way of the World, All in All, and Gratitude didn't just top the charts. They changed how people thought about music. Maurice's vision combined spiritual themes with infectious rhythms, creating songs that made you dance and think at the same time. But here's what most people don't know. Even at the height of their success, Maurice was already planning for a future he knew would be different. At first, he kept this diagnosis completely secret, continuing to work in the studio and guide the band's direction. He stopped touring in 1994, but his creative spirit never stopped. Even as his body began to fail him, his mind remained sharp. He continued producing albums for other artists, including Barbra Streisand and Neil Diamond, bringing his signature spiritual touch to their work. Maurice always said, "Music is the greatest communication in the world." And he lived by these words until the very end. He was a private man who loved tennis and basketball, and he split his time between a peaceful home in Carmel Valley and a multi-level condo in Los Angeles. To his family, including his half-brother Verdine and brother Fred, who were both in the band, he wasn't Maurice White the star. He was just Reese, a loving father and husband. On February 4, 2016, Maurice White passed away peacefully in his sleep at age 74. He had been living with Parkinson's for over 20 years, but he never let the disease define his legacy. When news of his death spread, tributes poured in from legends like Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, and Eric Clapton. Today, Maurice is remembered in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Songwriters Hall of Fame, and countless other institutions. But his greatest monument is the music that still moves people around the world. Before joining Earth, Wind, and Fire, Philip was studying at the University of Colorado and playing in a local R&B band called Friends and Love. But in 1972, his life changed forever when Maurice White heard him sing and invited him to join the group. Philip didn't just bring an amazing voice. He brought a spiritual depth that became central to the band's identity. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, Philip's falsetto became the sound that lifted Earth, Wind, and Fire's music into another dimension. He sang lead on classics like Devotion, Keep Your Head to the Sky, and Fantasy, while also sharing vocal duties with Maurice on massive hits like September, Shining Star, and Boogie Wonderland. His voice became a symbol of the band's uplifting, celestial sound. When Maurice stepped back from touring in the mid-1990s due to his health issues, Philip naturally became the frontman for live performances. But Philip's talents extended far beyond Earth, Wind and Fire. In 1983, he released his debut solo album Continuation, featuring the hit I Know. The following year, he surprised many fans by releasing The Wonders of His Love, a gospel album that showcased his deep Christian faith. Philip's collaborations read like a who's who of musical legends. He appeared on Stevie Wonder's In Square Circle, contributed to CeeLo Green's The Lady Killer, and released jazz-influenced albums that showed his incredible range as an artist. Despite his public success, Philip has always been private about his personal life, focusing on his family and faith. In 2019, Philip released Love Will Find a Way, a jazz-influenced album that blended Afrobeat, soul, and political consciousness. As of 2025, at 74 years old, Philip Bailey continues to defy time itself. His falsetto still shimmers with that same magic, and his stage presence remains magnetic. While many of his contemporaries have retired, Philip keeps touring with Earth, Wind and Fire, bringing their timeless music to both longtime fans and new generations discovering their sound for the first time. If Earth, Wind and Fire had a heartbeat, it would be Verdine White's bass guitar. Born Verdine Adams Jr. on July 25, 1951, in Chicago, Verdine is now 73 years old and still the most energetic performer you'll ever see on stage. Growing up in a musical household where his father was a doctor who played saxophone and his brothers Maurice and Fred were both drummers, Verdine was surrounded by rhythm from birth. At age 15, Verdine saw a double bass in his high school orchestra room and immediately fell in love with the instrument. He took private lessons from Rady Haja of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and was mentored on electric bass by Louis Satterfield from Chess Records. This classical foundation combined with street-smart funk would become Verdine's signature style. In 1970, Maurice called his younger brother with a life-changing offer: join his new band in Los Angeles. That band was Earth, Wind and Fire, and Verdine packed his bass and flew west without hesitation. From the very beginning, Verdine's presence was magnetic. His flamboyant outfits, infectious smile, and animated stage moves made him instantly recognizable. But it was his bass playing that gave the band its pulse. Whether laying down grooves for Shining Star, Getaway, or Boogie Wonderland, Verdine was always in motion, driving the rhythm with joyful urgency. As Earth, Wind and Fire rose to global fame, winning Grammy Awards and selling over 90 million albums, Verdine became the group's kinetic force both on stage and off. Through lineup changes, personal losses, and shifting music trends, he never wavered. Even when Maurice retired from performing in the 1990s due to Parkinson's disease, Verdine stayed at the helm, preserving the band's legacy alongside Philip Bailey and Ralph Johnson. But Verdine's impact extends far beyond performing. He co-authored Playing the Bass Guitar with his mentor Satterfield and founded the Verdine White Foundation and the Verdine White Performing Arts Center in Los Angeles, organizations dedicated to empowering underprivileged youth through music and arts. In 2025, at age 73, Verdine surprised the world by stepping into the spotlight as a lead vocalist for the first time. His single Superman, dedicated to his late brother Maurice, was produced by his wife Shelley Clark, who was formerly a member of the groups Labelle and Honeycomb. The song marked a beautiful full-circle moment. The younger brother who had once followed Maurice into the studio was now honoring his legacy with his own voice. Behind the scenes, Verdine has built a life of stability and love. He's been married to Shelley for over 40 years, and they live in a historic Los Angeles home built in. Despite losing his brothers Fred in 2023 and Monty in 2020, Verdine has never allowed grief to dim his light. His performances today still radiate with the same youthful intensity he had in 1975. There's something special about drummers who don't need to be the loudest person in the room to be the most important. And Ralph Johnson is exactly that kind of musician. Born Ralph Randolph Johnson on July 4, 1951, in Los Angeles, Ralph has been the rhythmic backbone of Earth, Wind and Fire for over 5 decades. Now 73 years old, He's still moving to his own beat, both in music and in life. Growing up in a household where his father was a lyricist and his mother was a vocalist, Ralph was surrounded by music from birth. At age 8, he received his first snare drum, and after just one lesson, he was completely hooked. By his teenage years, Ralph was immersed in R&B and funk, idolizing the sounds of Motown, Stax, and Sly and the Family Stone. The moment that changed everything came when Ralph was 13 years old and attended a James Brown concert. Seeing 3 drum kits on stage was like witnessing thunder being born. That night, Ralph didn't just watch a show, he found his life's purpose. He cut his teeth in local LA bands like the Teen Turbans and the Master's Children before Maurice White discovered him playing in a local club in 1971. Ralph wasn't just a drummer, he was a musician with precision, discipline, and soul. By the end of 1971, Ralph had become one of the newest members of Earth, Wind & Fire, and music history was about to be made. Ralph's percussion didn't just keep time, it gave Earth, Wind & Fire a heartbeat that millions of people could feel in their chests. With Philip Bailey's soaring falsetto, Maurice's vision, and Verdine's driving bass, Ralph's grooves anchored classics like September Fantasy, Boogie Wonderland, and Let's Groove. As the band climbed to incredible heights, earning 6 Grammy Awards and selling over 90 million albums worldwide, Ralph remained both steady and curious. He explored producing, songwriting, and collaborations with artists from different generations and genres, working with everyone from Drake to Meghan Trainor. In 2019, he released Coast to Coast, Everything's Cool, his first solo project that showed the world a different, more personal side of his artistry. But Ralph Johnson has never been defined by music alone. Away from the spotlight, he's a man of many disciplines. He holds black belts in both Tang Soo Do and Kung Fu San Soo, and when he's not on tour, he teaches martial arts at his longtime instructor's school. He's also a certified scuba diver and an aviation enthusiast with a student pilot's license. Art, jazz, and meditation are constant companions in his life. Ralph has kept his family life deliberately private, but those close to him describe him as grounded, spiritual, and loyal. Someone who listens more than he speaks and whose calm nature has helped hold Earth, Wind & Fire together through countless transitions. In recent years, Ralph has become more reflective, often speaking about gratitude for his health, his musical brothers, and the generations of fans who've kept Earth, Wind & Fire alive across decades. Long before synthesizers ruled the charts or keyboard solos became stadium anthems, Larry Dunn was already creating sonic landscapes that transcended every genre imaginable. Born Lorenzo Dunn in Denver, Colorado, to an Italian mother and African-American father, Larry wasn't just Earth, Wind & Fire's keyboardist, he was their musical alchemist, transforming simple melodies into complex emotional experiences. Music was woven into Larry's family from the beginning, and he showed incredible talent from an early age. By the time he attended East High School, he was already known as a prodigy who could read, arrange, and compose music with the confidence of a seasoned professional. In 1972, while still in his early 20s, Larry moved to Los Angeles, and fate stepped in when Maurice White heard him play and immediately invited him to join the band. As Earth, Wind & Fire's musical director and keyboardist from 1972 to crafting arrangements, co-writing songs, and shaping the elaborate live shows that made Earth, Wind & Fire more than just a band, they became a spiritual movement. Larry's contributions to albums like That's the Way of the World, Gratitude, and All in All didn't just help these records top the charts. They influenced entire generations of musicians who are still trying to recreate that magical sound today. He wasn't the frontman singing the high notes or dancing in sequined jumpsuits, but in the studio, Larry was pure magic, weaving together jazz, funk, gospel, and classical influences into something completely new. In 1983, Larry made the difficult decision to step away from Earth, Wind & Fire. The reasons weren't dramatic or bitter. It was simply the natural course of artistic growth. After pouring over a decade of his life into the group, Larry was ready to expand his musical identity and explore new creative territories. His post-Earth, Wind & Fire years were incredibly productive. Larry lent his keyboard magic to albums by The Emotions, Ronnie Laws, Hubert Laws, and many other jazz and soul luminaries. He became a sought-after producer and arranger, working well into the 1990s and helping to shape the sound of contemporary R&B and jazz. In 2013, decades after his departure, Larry briefly reunited with Earth, Wind & Fire for their album Now, Then and Forever. It was a beautiful full-circle moment that reminded everyone that while he may no longer be a touring member, his musical DNA is still etched permanently into the band's sound. Away from the keyboards, Larry has kept much of his personal life private. Those who know him describe him as thoughtful, intensely spiritual, and deeply loyal to his musical roots. He remains devoted to music and mentorship, occasionally performing and recording under his own name, but always with the humility that's striking for someone who helped create a sound that has sold over 90 million records worldwide. Before the towering horns and glittering stage shows that made Earth, Wind & Fire famous around the world, there was a voice that helped shape the band's earliest sound: soulful, elegant, and absolutely otherworldly. Her name was Jessica Cleaves, and while her time with the band was brief, her contribution to the golden age of funk and soul deserves to be remembered and celebrated. Born on December 10, 1948, in Los Angeles, Jessica was raised in a deeply spiritual and artistic household. Her mother, Mary, worked as a librarian. Her father, Lane, served as a postal worker. But it was her grandfather, Bishop Lane C. Cleaves Sr., who instilled in her a sense of community, reverence, and power. Values she would later channel through her incredible music. Jessica's talent emerged early, and her passion for performance led her to study music at the prestigious California Institute of the Arts and later at UCLA. Among her classmates was legendary songwriter Skip Scarborough, and by the late 1960s, she had already made waves as a founding member of the Friends of Distinction, delivering lush vocals on hits like Grazing in the Grass and Going in Circles. In 1971, Jessica joined Earth, Wind & Fire, replacing Helena Davis and quickly becoming a central part of the band's early transformation. She contributed her ethereal tone to their albums Last Days and Time and Head to the Sky, singing on tracks like Zanzibar and Keep Your Head to the Sky with a voice that seemed to float above the instruments like a prayer. But just as Earth, Wind & Fire was about to ascend into global superstardom, Jessica quietly exited the stage. Internal tensions and Maurice White's tightening creative direction led to her departure shortly after Head to the Sky. For many artists, this might have been the end of their story, but for Jessica, it was just another beginning. She moved to Detroit and entered a completely different musical universe. Parliament Funkadelic, George Clinton's legendary psychedelic funk collective. With P-Funk, Jessica found a new kind of artistic freedom. Between 1976 and 1981, she sang on iconic albums like Tales of Kid Funkadelic, Uncle Jam Wants You, and The Electric Spanking of War Babies. She shed the restraint of pop soul and dove headfirst into raw cosmic experimentation that pushed the boundaries of what music could be. Jessica remained part of the P-Funk family well into the 1990s, appearing on George Clinton's solo albums and later projects. Yet despite her incredible contributions to two of music's most influential movements, she never received the recognition she deserved. Unlike many of her contemporaries, Jessica never chased fame or craved the spotlight. She simply served the music with complete dedication. Her personal life was marked by quiet resilience and solitude. Never married and without children of her own, she remained deeply connected to her godson, director Armando Ricci. In her later years, they began filming a documentary about her life called Jessica Cleaves, My Friends of Distinction. But sadly, that project was never completed. Jessica Cleaves passed away on May 2, 2000. She was 65 years old, and her death marked the end of an era for those who understood her true impact on music history. Long before saxophone solos disappeared from popular music, Andrew Woolfolk made them sing, wail, dance, and soar through unforgettable grooves like September, Boogie Wonderland, and Let's Groove. Behind his signature sunglasses and effortless cool, Andrew's saxophone infused Earth, Wind & Fire's sound with a shimmering layer of soul that could cut through brass bass and funk with incredible style and precision. Born on October 11, 1950, in San Antonio, Texas, and raised in Denver, Colorado, Andrew didn't grow up chasing fame. He chased melodies and musical excellence. Trained as a classical saxophonist and educated at East High School in Denver, he found his true calling in the horn-fueled magic of funk and R&B that was revolutionizing music in the early 1970s. Andrew's journey to the big stage began in 1973 when he joined Earth, Wind & Fire just as the band was transitioning from their jazz rock roots into full-blown spiritual funk superstardom. For over a decade, from 1973 to 1985, and again from 1987 to 1993, Andrew was the heart and soul of the horn section, and his saxophone lit up every corner of stages and studios around the world. But Andrew wasn't just a performer who showed up and played his parts. He was a true craftsman who understood that great music comes from both technical skill and emotional depth. Off stage, he became a highly sought-after session musician, collaborating with icons like Phil Collins, Level 42, and Denise Williams, bringing his distinctive sound to projects across multiple genres. Despite his success and the fame that came with being part of one of the world's biggest bands, Andrew kept a remarkably low profile throughout his career. He wasn't someone who chased the spotlight or craved attention. He let his music speak for itself, and for those who listened closely, it spoke volumes about his incredible talent and dedication. Andrew's personal life remained largely private, known only to close friends and fellow musicians who respected his desire for a quiet life away from the chaos of celebrity. But his bond with Earth, Wind & Fire never faded, even during the years when he wasn't actively touring with the group. In 2000, Andrew was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame alongside his bandmates, a recognition that was long overdue for someone who had contributed so much to the soundtrack of multiple generations. But then came a quiet battle that few people knew about. In April 2022, Philip Bailey revealed that Andrew had passed away after an extended illness that he had been fighting for several years. No details were ever made public, only that he died surrounded by love and dignity at the age of 71. Bailey's tribute captured Andrew perfectly. Great memories, great talent, funny, competitive, quick-witted, and always styling. I'll see you on the other side, my friend. While Earth, Wind & Fire was known around the world for their elaborate stagecraft and brass-powered anthems that could fill any arena, behind it all was a rhythm that was steady, rich, electric, and absolutely essential. For many of the band's most soulful moments, that rhythm came directly from Roland Bautista's fingers as he played guitar with the soul of a poet and the technical skills of a master. Born on May 30, 1951, in Los Angeles, Roland was a musician who could blend jazz, funk, and rock with seamless ease, creating sounds that expanded grooves into new dimensions that no one had explored before. He joined Earth, Wind & Fire in 1972 during a period of significant reorganization, and his intricate guitar work helped sculpt the group's transition from jazz fusion into something more expansive and commercially powerful. Roland's contributions to the band's early album, Last Days in Time, showcased his incredible ability to weave complex guitar lines through the group's evolving sound. But just as quickly as he had arrived, Roland departed after that album to explore solo ventures and expand his musical reach in directions that called to his artistic spirit. In the late 1970s, he released two remarkable solo albums, Bautista, 1977, and The Heat of the Wind. Now, these albums demonstrated that Roland was much more than just a sideman. He was a complete artist with his own unique vision and voice. Roland also became a highly prolific session guitarist, lending his distinctive skills to legendary artists like the Crusaders, Randy Crawford, George Duke, the Jackson 5, and even Tom Waits. His ability to adapt his style to serve each song while still maintaining his own musical personality made him one of the most respected musicians in the industry. Roland made the decision to rejoin Earth, Wind & Fire just as the band was undergoing another stylistic shift. He played on three important studio albums, Raise, Powerlight, and Electric Universe, before the group temporarily disbanded in 1983. His guitar work during this period showed remarkable growth and maturity. blending perfectly with the band's evolving sound. Despite his immense talent and the respect he earned from fellow musicians, Roland never actively sought fame or the spotlight that came with being part of such a successful group. Friends and colleagues consistently described him as soft-spoken, introspective, and deeply dedicated to his craft above all else. Unlike the flashier frontmen who commanded attention on stage, Roland preferred to let his music speak for him, and for those who listened carefully, it spoke with incredible eloquence and power. Sadly, Roland's life was cut tragically short when he died in Los Angeles in 2012 at the age of 60. His passing marked the loss of a truly gifted musician whose contributions to funk, jazz, and soul music continue to influence artists today, even though his name might not be as widely recognized as some of his more famous bandmates. As we reach the end of this incredible journey through the lives of Earth, Wind & Fire's original members, it's impossible not to feel the weight of both triumph and loss that defines their collective story. From Maurice White's visionary leadership and battle with Parkinson's disease to Philip Bailey's voice that still soars at 74 years old, from Verdine White's infectious energy that continues to light up stages around the world to Ralph Johnson's steady rhythm that has anchored the band for over 5 decades, each member brought something irreplaceable to the magical sound that changed music forever. We've seen how Larry Dunn's keyboard wizardry helped define their revolutionary sound, how Jessica Cleaves contributed her ethereal voice to their early transformation, how Andrew Woolfolk's saxophone made their grooves shimmer with soul, and how Roland Bautista's guitar work expanded their musical boundaries. Some of these legends are still with us, still creating, still inspiring new generations of fans. Others have passed on, leaving behind legacies that will never be forgotten. What makes Earth, Wind & Fire's story so compelling isn't just their incredible commercial success, selling over 90 million albums, winning 6 Grammy Awards, and being inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's the fact that they created something much bigger than entertainment. They created a movement that combined spirituality, positivity, and musical excellence in ways that continue to influence artists across all genres today. In 2025, as Philip Bailey, Verdine White, and Ralph Johnson continue to tour and bring Earth, Wind & Fire's timeless music to audiences both old and new, they carry with them the spirits and contributions of all the members who helped build this incredible legacy. Every time September plays at a wedding, every time Boogie Wonderland fills a dance floor, every time someone discovers their music for the first time, the magic that these original members created together lives on. The story of Earth, Wind & Fire proves that great music is never just about individual talent. It's about what happens when incredibly gifted people come together with a shared vision and the determination to create something that will outlast them all. Maurice White's dream of combining cosmic soul with spiritual funk didn't just create hit songs. It created a soundtrack for joy, celebration, and human connection that transcends generations, cultures, and time itself. Earth, Wind & Fire's music reminds us that in a world that often feels divided, there are still sounds that can bring us all together on the dance floor of life, and their legacy proves that true artistry never dies. It just keeps on grooving through eternity. Hit that subscribe button if you want more untold stories about music's greatest legends.